The night Lad died, the house felt too quiet. For the first time in 14 years, no one stood watch at the gate. No soft breath curled against the door. And no one, not the master, not the mistress, not even the earth itself, could deny what had been lost. Because Lad wasn't just a dog. He was the heart of this place. And every story worth telling begins with a heart like his. Lad was born into the world on a cold spring morning, a scrap of fur no bigger than a man's hand, blind eyes shut tight against the light. He was one of many pups, and like all the rest, he fought for a place at his mother's side. But there was something different about Lad. Even before his eyes opened, Lad learned the first law of life at the place: the weak eat first. His mother, old and wise, stepped back at mealtimes so the smallest could reach her milk before the strong. It wasn't kindness. It was honor. A rule passed down for generations, the law of protectors. Lad didn't need words to understand it. It settled into his bones, quiet and unshakable. He was barely weaned when his first test came. A bigger, older dog muscled into the food bowl one afternoon, sending the pups scattering. All except Lad. He stood firm, trembling but unmoving, his heart pounding so loud it filled his ears. The older dog knocked him flat. Lad got up. The dog shoved him again. Lad stood his ground. The master watched from the porch, and in that moment the decision was made. This pup wasn't going anywhere. Lad stayed, raised not just by his mother but by the place itself. He learned the shape of the land under his paws, the stretch of the fields, the cool shade of the barn, the worn trail leading to the old oak. But more than anything, he learned the language of his master and mistress. The master was a man of few words, a farmer whose hands were as rough as the earth he worked. But between him and Lad, no words were needed. They walked the land side by side, the master's hand brushing Lad's ear now and then, a silent reminder that Lad belonged. The mistress was different. Soft voice, warm hands, the kind of gentleness Lad understood was rare. Her lap was his resting place, her smile his reward. Together, these two humans became Lad's world. And to Lad, the meaning of loyalty was simple: protect them, no matter the cost. The first time danger came to the place, Lad was barely a year old. A stranger appeared at the gate just after dark, shoulders hunched, eyes shifting like a thief caught in the act. The master wasn't home, and the mistress was alone by the fire. Lad knew before the latch even moved. He stood at the door, body stiff, ears forward, every hair on his back bristling like frost-touched grass. When the man reached for the handle, Lad launched against the wood with a force that rattled the glass panes. The bark that tore from his chest was not the sound of a puppy. It was a warning, ancient, undeniable. The stranger fled, leaving the gate swinging wide behind him. The mistress knelt beside Lad, her fingers trembling in his fur. "You knew," she whispered. "Before I did, you knew." Lad only lowered his head into her lap, not proud, not afraid, just certain. Because this was his purpose. The next morning, the master stood at the gate with something in his hand, an old leather collar, worn smooth by time and weather. It had belonged to another dog once, a protector who guarded the place long before Lad was born. Now, it was Lad's turn to wear it. The master buckled it around Lad's neck without ceremony, but Lad understood the weight of it immediately. It wasn't just a collar. It was a promise, man to dog, heart to heart. This place is yours to defend. Years passed, and the place grew quieter. Lad's once sleek coat silvered at the edges. His steps slowed, but his watch never faltered. Then came Buddy. A wild, clumsy pup with paws too big for his body and a heart full of mischief. At first, Lad saw him as a nuisance, all noise and no sense. But the day Buddy got too close to the creek and froze at the sight of a fox, Lad stepped between them without a second thought. The fox vanished. And from that moment, Buddy followed Lad everywhere, tail wagging, eyes wide, learning not from lessons, but from example. Lad became teacher, protector, father. And Buddy, in his own reckless way, became Lad's shadow. It was a winter night when the real test came. The master was away, and the mistress slept soundly, trusting the silence. But Lad knew silence could lie. The gate creaked open, too soft for human ears but loud enough for Lad's heart. 2 men stepped inside, faces hidden by scarves, hands carrying more than just greed. Lad didn't bark. He stepped into the yard, slow and steady, standing between the men and the house. The collar caught the moonlight, a glint of brass against his thick fur. The men hesitated, but not long enough. They rushed him. Lad fought like a dog with nothing to lose, because he had already given his life to the place long ago. Teeth met flesh, bone met boot. Lad held the line. When the mistress appeared with the shotgun, the men fled into the dark, leaving only silence and blood behind. Most of it Lad's. The mistress knelt beside him, tears sliding into his fur. "You saved me," she whispered. Lad's tail thumped once. The last sound he ever made. Lad's grave lies beneath the old oak now, where the morning sun warms the earth he gave his life to protect. Buddy walks the land alone these days, his once clumsy steps now sure, his young eyes older than their years. At night, Buddy sleeps by the door, his muzzle resting where Lad's once lay. And if you look closely, you'll see it. The way Buddy stands just a little taller when the wind shifts. The way his ears prick at sounds no one else hears. The way his heart beats to the rhythm of the law Lad taught him. Because protectors never die. They become part of the land they guarded. Part of the hearts they defended. Part of the stories we tell, so we never forget what loyalty really means. If Lad's story reminds you of a dog who left their paw prints on your heart, share this story. Because some dogs deserve to be remembered. And some, like Lad, deserve to live forever.